If you are watching this video, then we have piqued your curiosity. True crime, man's dark imagination. And now, here is your host, Alan Gautreaux.
Fleecing lonely women for their fortunes is nothing new. But one criminal in particular perfected it to an art form. Not only did Henri Désiré Landru make a living of preying on weak and susceptible widows, he also thought to make sure that his tracks remained a mystery. What he didn't count on was a relative of one of the victims pursuing the wily bachelor until justice was finally served. A widow living in a small French village was given a choice. An older man sought to marry one of her daughters, and she had to make that choice. No threats or violence occurred that would cause the widow to feel threatened regarding her decision. However, the man asking for the hand of one of her daughters had been married 7 times before. Mysteriously, no one knew what happened to the man's spouses. In order to influence the widow's decision and eliminate any aspersions, he invited the family to his estate in the country to become familiar and possibly fall in love with the man. As the family stayed there approximately a week, the youngest of the daughters, Fatima, found that the man who wanted to marry one of the daughters was flattering, well-mannered, and in a strange way somewhat handsome, despite his blue beard, hair so dark that it emitted a bluish sheen. Subsequently, once they all returned to their home village, Fatima and the older man were married. Soon after their marriage, Bluebeard, as he became known, informed his new wife that he had to make a business trip and suggested that Fatima leave the village and go to his country estate with her sister. When Fatima and her sister decided to head to the country estate, Bluebeard offered the young ladies the keys to his safe where he kept all of his wealth at the residence. Also included with these keys were the keys to every room in the estate. He warned his new bride that the smallest key on the ring should not be used to open the door at the end of the basement. He told her not to venture there and open that door, or then you will feel my wrath. The young bride promised to obey her husband's wishes, and then he walked out of the door to take his business trip. Later that day, Fatima and her sister arrived at the country estate, and her curiosity set in enough for her to break her promise to her new husband. Fatima went to the basement and noticed that the small key fit into a cabinet. She stood there for a while with her new husband's words ringing through her head. Finally, her curiosity got the better of her, and she put the small key into the lock of the cabinet. What she noticed was that the cabinet was a door built into the basement wall. Fatima opened the cabinet and walked into what appeared to be a very dark room. Her eyes could not adjust to what was in the room at first. Then she peered straight ahead and noticed that her vision became clearer. Focusing slowly, Fatima noted that the floor was covered with dried blood. When she gazed a little further into the room, she shrieked quietly when she noticed the bodies of 7 women, some in a more decomposed state than the others, all with their throats cut and still bleeding on the floor. Because of the startled condition in which Fatima viewed the room, she dropped the key to the cabinet into the blood on the floor and searched desperately to find it so that she could leave the room in a hurry. Finally picking up the key, dripping with blood, Fatima tried to wipe the excess blood from the key, but to no avail. A few minutes later, after she reached the main floor, her husband returned from his business trip early due to the matter being resolved in his favor. Bluebeard entered the chambers where the couple slept and saw his wife there, trembling. When he grabbed Fatima's hands, he realized that she had been very shaken. Bluebeard asked about whether she had the keys, and she responded in the affirmative. When Bluebeard asked her why she trembled so, Fatima replied, not so convincingly, that she missed her husband and was glad that he returned so quickly. When he asked where the key to the basement may have been, she stated that it must have been with the others and fumbled for the key in her dress pockets. As Bluebeard notified his wife that he would be warming himself by the fire, Fatima met him there with the keys. She hid the basement key amongst some clothing in their room. When Bluebeard realized that the basement key was not among the ones that she handed him, he commanded Fatima to look for it and bring it to him immediately. Once she produced the key to her husband, he queried as to why blood appeared on the key. Bluebeard then detected that his new wife saw the inside of the forbidden room. He grabbed her by the wrist and stated that she would join the rest of the women in the basement. Fatima fell to her knees, begging her husband to not include her with the rest. Fatima stated she needed to make her peace with God before her husband took her life. He granted her a quarter of an hour to do so. Fatima called to her sister and explained the situation. She then went to the tower of the estate and saw two riders approaching the building. She hoped it would be her brothers and they would hurry to her rescue. Bluebeard yelled that she come to him, and once they were outside, Fatima pleaded for her life again. Her cold-blooded husband stated that her pleading and begging did not suit her and that she must die. As Bluebeard brought his hand down with the blade to cut her throat, the gates to the front yard burst open and two men stood there with swords in hand. It was the intended victim's brothers. Once Bluebeard released Fatima, he fled with the brothers in hot pursuit. Once they captured the murderer, they ran him through with their rapiers. Since he had no heirs, Fatima inherited his entire estate, splitting it amongst herself and her siblings. She later married a good man and had children. This tale stood for a long time as merely a legend, often told through the auspices of Mother Goose. But legends are often grounded in reality, and Bluebeard actually existed through the guise of Henri Landru, known as a serial killer of beautiful women for any fortunes they may possess at the times of their deaths. This killer spread a reign of terror in France for over 4 years, remaining undetected until an inquisitive family member of one of his victims raised the alarm. Once his crimes became known, the public clamored for revenge. Henri Landru has been described as a little man, shorter than most, with a bald head and thick brownish-red beard. His eyebrows were thick and bushy and arched above his dark eyes, giving impression that he was always astonished or surprised. Landru, by his description, was not the type of man that one would consider to be a Casanova of sorts. He actually convinced over 300 women to hand over their riches to him. But Landru held some sort of special sway that a second-hand furniture dealer and mechanic would not normally have over women. 10 of these women would pay for that trust with their lives and permanently label any man who robs women blind as a Bluebeard. Henri Désiré Landru was born in 1869 during France's Third Republic, and his early life was very boring compared to most fiends that went on to infamous notoriety as destroyers of humanity. His mother was a housewife, and his father worked as a fireman for an ironworks foundry. Most of the people that knew Landru as a young boy had nothing but praise for him, being as he was intelligent and at first sought admittance to a seminary to become a priest. When finished his schooling at the age of 17, like most young men his age, Landru attended a mechanical college to study mechanical engineering. At the age of 18, Landru accepted his military drafting and really excelled at his service, having reached the rank of sergeant by the time he reached the age of 22 at the time of his discharge. In 1891, realizing that he had a certain je ne sais quoi with the ladies, Landru seduced his cousin, Mademoiselle Remy, who became pregnant and bore Landru a daughter. 2 years after his daughter's birth, Landru married Mademoiselle Remy and then left to pursue employment as a clerk for a local company. As a clerk, Landru realized that his employer stole money from the employees of the company, forcing the firm into bankruptcy. Landru became incensed that someone could do that to another, and even though he still exercised his duties as a deacon and a member of the choir of his church, he set out to begin a career as a swindler. In addition to his furniture business and being a mechanic, Landru also wooed lonely widows who did not want to live their lives in poverty. Therefore, Landru would get the widows to invest their meager pensions with him, which he promptly stole. Landru actually targeted women that he met through his regular businesses. Why someone would trust a man who sold furniture and worked as a mechanic to handle their money remains a mystery. Perhaps it was the way he addressed the women that made them feel useful that fell into his plan. However, French authorities arrested Landru in 1900 when he was caught trying to withdraw funds from a major bank using a false identity. The court found him guilty and sentenced him to 2 years in a French prison. The whole incarceration, Madame Remy managed to stay married to Landru, and eventually, by the end of their marriage, they had 4 children together. Over the next 10 years, Landru used prison as a revolving door, and he was in and out of incarceration 7 times, with some stretches occurring in blocks of 3 years. In approximately 1908, Landru struck up the consistent scheme that would eventually lead to his downfall. While in prison in Paris for fraud, authorities transported him to Lille to stand trial for another crime. A Madame Azor trusted the ne'er-do-well with a 15,000 franc dowry. Landru left the woman destitute, and she fought for restitution through the courts. By the time the police arrested Landru, he already spent the entire dowry. The only consolation left to Madame Azor was the fact that Landru would serve another 3 years in prison for the crime. In 1914, shortly before World War I, Landru walked out of prison a free man with the stipulation that he would enlist in the French army. Landru's family became destitute as his father killed himself due to the shame and poverty that his son brought to him and his wife. Landru's mother died in 1910. So, with nowhere to go, Landru wandered the French countryside, knowing full well that he had been convicted in absentia for various crimes. So it was in his best interest to keep on the move while he searched for other potential victims. Although he moved around as a vagrant, Landru was not driven to murder because of some unadulterated bloodlust. Rather, he sought to alleviate any entanglement with the women that he victimized. Murder seemed to be the inevitable conclusion in relieving the emotional attachment he may have had with some of the victims. Pure greed overcame Landru, pure and simple. Callous and inhuman, Landru's self-serving existence left approximately 300 women in his wake. Not all of them were easy to ignore. Characterized as smooth-talking and somewhat debonair, Landru seemed able to convince women that he could make them small fortunes through his personality, preying on lonely women. Several of the women, in fact, stated that Landru did not have to be handsome, as he possessed a voracious sexual appetite. Not only did Landru defraud lonely women, but he also defrauded soldiers who were wounded during the war drawing pensions. There is no documentation that Landru used the same persuasive techniques with men as he did with the women. Beginning in 1914, Landru placed an advertisement that stated, "Widower with 2 children, aged 43, with comfortable income, serious and moving in good society, desires to meet widow with view toward matrimony." Widows of soldiers from the war viewed such an advertisement as heaven sent, as the war produced a very poor economy, and most widows faced poverty living on their widow's pension from the government. Needless to say, Landru had no trouble meeting eligible women. One of those women, Madame Couchet, was 39 years old and had a 16-year-old son named André. Couchet worked as a salesperson in a Paris lingerie shop and could hardly support her son and herself on the meager salary and pension from her dead husband when she happened to meet Landru. Landru lied to the widow, stating that his name was Diard and that he was employed as an engineer. When the relationship grew stronger, the two had a falling out. Madame Couchet wanted members of her family to accompany her to Landru's villa with the hope of settling their differences and reconciling. When Couchet and her brother-in-law went to the villa, they noted a vacant residence. The two entered the villa and felt right at home. When Couchet's brother-in-law walked around the villa, he discovered a trunk filled with letters from other women and informed Madame Couchet that her lover was a fraud. The jilted woman decided to ignore the advice of her family and soon rented a villa at Venuet, where her son, and Landru lived. The last time that Madame Couchet and her son, André, were seen alive was January 1915. Subsequent to the three of them moving into the Venuet villa, Landru opened a bank account at a local institution where he deposited 5,000 francs. Landru claimed the money as an inheritance from his deceased father. Soon after Couchet disappeared, Madame Remy received Madame Couchet's watch as a present from her husband. Madame Laborde-Line bragged to her friends that she met a charming engineer. Since her husband passed away, she found herself very lonely, but not destitute, as her deceased husband was a wealthy hotelier. After several months of courtship, the couple became frustrated with diplomatic red tape because Madame was from Argentina and had to seek certain dispensation in order to marry. The couple dispensed with the pleasantries and eventually just moved in together. Laborde-Line was last seen in July 1915. A neighbor saw Landru moving his common-law wife's furniture from the villa and placing it within a garage located at Nadouy. A Madame Guilin, also known as Marie-Angélique Désirée Pelletier, arrived at the villa a month later. A month subsequent to the visit of Madame Guilin, a Madame Ayon visited the villa at Venuet and also disappeared. In addition to the disappearances of Madame Couchet, Laborde-Line, Madame Guilin, Madame Ayon, and André Couchet, a young servant girl also came up missing, 19-year-old Andrea Babalet, in March 1917. Historians have tried to discern why someone who lacked the wealth of Landru's alleged victims would garner the treatment of those conned by the trickster. Did she stumble across Bluebeard's plans, or did she witness his disposal of one of the victims? No one knows whether Landru had anything to do with Babalet's disappearance, but soon thereafter, Landru moved from Venuet into a new estate in Jambéi and had a large cast-iron oven installed upon moving in. For almost 24 months, no one heard from Landru. This probably occurred as a result of his living off the absconded funds from the widows who were missing. When Landru surfaced again, he began courting a widow named Madame Buisson and waited just a little while longer, almost a year, before he estranged her from her family. Soon thereafter, Madame Buisson moved into the estate at Jambéi, with her son moving away living with an aunt. In April 1917, Madame Buisson went missing as well. Madame Louise Léopoldine Jomet disappeared in approximately September 1917. It appeared that Landru worked at a feverish pace to gain wealth and orchestrate the disappearances of these widows. After Madame Jomet's disappearance, the new neighbors at Jambéi frequently complained that they smelled some putrid smoke billowing from Landru's chimney. Additionally, two women, Annette Pascal, who vanished in the spring of 1918, and Marie-Thérèse Merchadier, an entertainer known as La Belle Mathise to the various non-coms of the French army during the war, both disappeared, respectively. Landru asked Merchadier if he could be the contingent agent for the selling of her furniture. She agreed, and the two soon started a romantic relationship. Mademoiselle Merchadier went to Jambéi for a visit and, by all accounts, never left. This occurred in late 1918. In addition to the 10 women missing, 2 dogs had vanished as well. When Landru essentially seduced the women, he made sure that they remained estranged from their families. After their disappearances, Landru took extra work to maintain that their loved ones were healthy, alive, and well. A few of Madame Guillin's friends received letters alleged to have been by her hand, and a dressmaker to Madame Buisson received a forged letter, and Landru sent another to the concierge of her apartment in Paris. Landru continued the charade by representing himself as the attorney of Madame Jomet, who, at the time, was divorcing her husband, and Landru successfully closed down her bank accounts. Undoubtedly, they went into his accounts. 2 years after Landru met Madame Buisson, her son passed away, and other family members wanted to get in touch with her to apprise her of her son's death. The family members were unable to locate her, but her sister remembered that Madame Buisson whispered to her that she recently planned to meet a Monsieur Gillet at Jambéi. Madame Buisson's sister wrote to the mayor of Jambéi and expressed her concerns regarding her sister and Gillette, and the mayor stated that he knew neither. But the mayor suggested to Madame Buisson's sister she should meet the family of Madame Colombe, another widow who was also listed as missing. Madame Colombe disappeared under the same circumstances as Gillet and Buisson. Colombe had first met Landru in early 1917 and disappeared soon thereafter. The tenant of the villa was not Monsieur Framier, Landru, Dupont, or Dialt. In fact, when authorities visited the villa, it stood vacant. Known as Monsieur Framier to Mademoiselle Lacoste, Madame Buisson's sister, she saw Landru and could recognize him by sight and went to Paris near Landru's old residence to see if she could locate the elusive bachelor. In 1919, coming out of a dry goods shop, Mademoiselle Lacoste spotted Landru and decided to follow close behind him. After following him to his residence, Mademoiselle Lacoste returned to the dry goods store and discovered that the man's name was not Framier, but his name, as far as the dry goods manager was aware, was Gillet, and he lived in the Rue de Rochechouchard with his mistress. Immediately, Mademoiselle Lacoste notified the police, went to the residence, and the police arrested Landru. They were willing to arrest the suspect, but on what charge? Once the authorities arrested Landru, he refused to say anything to them. No evidence existed with him or in his home in Paris that would denote that he was a murderer. Investigators then decided that they would search his estate at Jambéi. When the authorities searched the gardens and excavated the ground, they only found the remains of 2 dogs. They searched the villa at Verneuil and found nothing. They did, however, find a journal where Landru made notations regarding his expenses and income. Within those notations, law enforcement became very interested in not only the financial records kept within the book, but the names that appeared as well. The names Écouché, Gicouché, Brésil, Crozatier, Havre, Buisson, Colombe, Babelet, Jomet, Pascal, and Mercadier. This seemed as though Landru may have been keeping a tally of his victims, but there were still no bodies. Under French law, it was possible to obtain a conviction for murder without an actual corpse. Landru, therefore, uneducated as to the French law, refused to answer any questions from his interrogators. This cat-and-mouse game continued for over 2 years as the authorities tried to find any evidence of Landru's wrongdoing. Methodically, the authorities investigated each of the names in the ledger and noted the same manner in which Landru lured the women to his domain, and then they disappeared. Interestingly, the ledger demonstrated that Landru purchased one-way tickets for the ladies from Paris to Jambéi, yet the round-trip tickets purchased only contained his name. Authorities tried desperately to link Landru to the purchase of varying chemicals that would dissolve corpses very quickly, but to no avail. The gardens at Jambéi and Verneuil had no results. In one search, investigators tried to check the stove that Landru installed shortly after arriving at Jambéi. It was there that they believed they hit the jackpot. Authorities uncovered small bones in the ashes, human bones, as well as clothing and fasteners worn by French women on their clothing at the time. It soon became clear how Landru disposed of the bodies, although they had not really determined their causes of death. The mystery of the disappearances was solved. At this point, authorities charged Landru with 11 counts of murder. At the time of Landru's trial, France just emerged from World War I as one of the victors, but the negotiations in Paris were not going well at the time. Landru's trial was seen as a morbid diversion from the devastation that permeated through France at the hands of the aggressive German army. Because the case involved all different sorts of sordid details, including sex and dark motives, all of France became engrossed with the news stories surrounding the case. When one studies the Landru Bluebeard case, one must remember that the term serial killer had not yet been coined. England remembered the Jack the Ripper murders that occurred just 40 years before, and Frenchmen could not believe that one of their countrymen could be involved in such horrendous crimes. Landru's trial finally began in November of 1921 and lasted just over a month. The French legal system, instituted in 1848, was and is heavily weighted against the person placed on trial. The judges are allowed to question witnesses in front of the jury in order to obtain the truth, and this is done vigorously in French courts. The victims' families are also allowed to bring suit against the accused to recover damages in cases of murder for wrongful death. Landru still believed that he could stall any justice because of no viable bodies before examination. The prosecution would not be able to prove that he murdered anyone, so he decided not to cooperate in the least, hoping that the charges would eventually be dismissed. Landru also believed that because his sanity was not in question, he was all but assured an acquittal. Landru exhibited a sense of arrogance when being questioned by the court, and this did not convince the jury of his innocence. After 25 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for 2 hours and finally pronounced a verdict of guilty. Even without the corpses, the jury found Landru guilty on all 11 counts of murder. The 3-judge panel announced with all confidence that Landru should be put to death for his crimes. The accepted form of execution in France at the time was guillotine. This method raised certain medical questions as to whether the executed person feels any pain after the blade severed the head at the neck. 2 doctors wrote in 1960, "Death is not instantaneous. Every vital element survives decapitation. It is a savage vivisection followed by premature burial." There were also eyewitness accounts stemming back to the French Revolution, where one unfortunate woman suffered a decapitation by guillotine, and the crowd stated they witnessed a look of disdain and defiance on the woman's face immediately after the execution. One doctor witnessed an execution in 1905 where the executed man's eyelids and nervous contractions demonstrated that the nervous system still functioned up to 6 seconds subsequent to death. This physician also witnessed that the severed head's eyes seemed to focus after death. This questioned whether the guillotine was indeed a human manner with which to serve the judgment of death. Despite the arguments of whether decapitation was a painless method of execution, on February 25, 1922, Landru faced the executioner. He said goodbye to his attorneys and gave them some artwork that he finished while awaiting his trial. The attorneys failed to find a full confession within the frame of the work where the condemned man admitted to all of his crimes. The confession did not surface until almost 50 years later. When asked if he wanted to make a statement, Landru declined and treated the question with much indignation. When Landru finally stood before the guillotine, he then knelt down, and within a few moments, France had rid herself of one of the most brutal murderers in her history. In 1947, Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles collaborated on a script that used the Landru story. Unfortunately, Welles wanted to direct Chaplin, but Chaplin could only direct Chaplin. The result was the movie Monsieur Verdoux, loosely based on Landru's exploits. Although the film received a cold reception in the United States, it seemed to garner a great deal of popularity in Europe. Although Landru's crimes paled in comparison to most serial killers around that period, including Jack the Ripper, he acted with malice aforethought and demonstrated the ability to cover his crimes, although not that well since he got caught. In a more morbid remembrance, Henri Désiré Landru's severed head is permanently on display at the Museum of Death in Hollywood, California. Even this memento of the famous Bluebeard draws infamous attention nearly 100 years after his crimes and death. Until next time. Hello everyone, this is Alan Gotro, your host of True Crime Man's Dark Imagination. If you would like to support our channel, you can become a member of Subscribe Star There are different levels, and subscribers get special privileges. Also, we do have a PayPal account. If you enjoy our work here, please think about subscribing. I will leave the links below in the comment section. We thank you very much for your viewing, and please stay tuned for future programs.